Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard. This is your captain speaking, Debbie Buyaki, and today we'll be taking a flight over nature's view, a 2030 climate journey story, kicking off from Nairobi. I don't know if we're kicking off really from Nairobi. We're just continuing from where we stopped at observations from last episode, and finally landing at what next in regards to action. Of course, going also into episode 10 for the wrap up. I hope you enjoyed this climate journey story and interview with my co-pilot as well. She's still around. And safety precautions, seatbelts on, and then wheels up. If you did not listen to episode 8, this is definitely my call for you to go back, because the question we're starting with today is the last question we talked about in episode 8, and it was an interview with my co-pilot. I'd like to call her that. Her name is Caroline Degwa, and she's done amazing things, and she will be doing amazing things going forward in regards to this project and many other projects that she'll do in this life. So we're talking about the frustration that comes with the inaction of government, and more so the local government, on not only Redignify as a project, but generally the whole population of Turkana County, and how the inaction is hurting the people they're seeing. Even a whole deputy president would say they're not aware of the atrocities that have been going on there for the past 3 years. It started raining recently, but honestly, every Kenyan knows that there's drought in Kenya, and going forward to and spreading out to the Horn of Africa. So it's such a hurtful statement, I think, blankly to say that someone would deny the atrocities happening there and deny also the pain of the people going on there. Important, as Carol has said, that I think they need to be there on the ground to see what's really happening and know what is the thing, as opposed to just talking blatantly from, a big city like Nairobi. So as we continue, Carol, with the observation on the government making this process a bit more complicated, also diving into the local government of Turkana County and how it has more or less its action or inaction is contributing at the end of the day to the effects of drought being felt more on the people there. So apart from the point that you mentioned on having the budget allocated there and not seeing action, what other front do you think is a way that government is blocking or just making the process of helping the people there achieve water security?
I think there's also complacency when it comes to their responsibilities, because yes, they will initiate projects, they will initiate extension services to the small scale farmers, they will have trainings for the youth, but are they, there's a difference between reaching the community, then we have the second one, which is benefiting the community, and then we have the third one, which is ensuring that they have impacted the community in a sustainable way. So it's not only reaching so that it's recorded, we were able to do these activities for the community, but to be able to actually benefit the community. So I think, yes, they do try, they have projects that they are working on, but they are only getting to the first point of ensuring a sustainable environment. So they only reach, are you able to follow up to see these projects that we started in this constituency, how are they moving on? Are the people still making income from it? Are the students moving? Because they'll even go and train the youth into projects or teaching the children the importance of education. But do you go back and ensure 5 years later or even 2 years later that the students are still going to school, the youth are still participating in these projects? So I think there's also need of following up on projects that are implemented.
So when you talk about reaching, benefiting, and impacting, is following up and impacting under the same bracket, and what's closing the bracket being sustainability? All this impacting and following being what we call sustainability.
Yes. So once we reach, we're able to benefit them, and then that creates you follow up. So you reach, you benefit them, you follow up on whatever was benefited from the project, and then now we
Yeah.
create a sustainable community or a sustainable environment, whatever you call it.
I hope the government heads, not only in Kenya, are listening to this, but also others that are planning to do other projects, not in water, generally in any sector, that you can follow this breakdown of reaching, benefiting, impacting, following up, which will therefore lead to sustainability of your project. I think it's also something that can be adapted to personal projects or organizational projects going forward. So these are some of the hurdles we've seen. And on my side as well, I'd like to front the hurdle of bureaucracy in the government. Trying to reach out to these people is not like, maybe in your countries, by the way, I found out in Europe, it's really easy to like contact your local government leader in whatever sector. In Kenya, or rather what I've observed with this project, it's not as simple. You'll be redirected to lots of PAs, personal assistants, and you will be followed up and with a phone call and be asked to follow up, and we are working on it. We'll call you back, we'll email you back. A lot of bureaucracy as well, in some sense, making it discouraging to people who want to pursue such dreams. Exactly what Carol was saying in the previous episode, that most of the projects have been done by private sector, because if you try to follow into the government sector, there's a lot of bureaucracy and questions like, who are you? Why do you want to do this? Yet at the end of the day, I'm trying actually to do your job for you and help you at your job. So the bureaucracy in the government is something very discouraging when it comes to an emergency, because this has been an emergency for the past 50 years. People are dying of drought and you still want me to write 70 emails to you. So the bureaucracy is not quite helpful.
You know, Debbie, it's so interesting how these politicians are too available for us during the elections or the campaigns. Yet now
Right.
when we need things implemented, we can't just get a hold of them. You will sit at a waiting room for hours and then you'll be
Right.
told they can't do today. It's disheartening.
For sure. So today, this is also turning out to be an episode of calling out people, and you should join me. I will give you the liberty. If you want to call out someone in your local government or your local organization whose frustrating efforts that are aimed to help you guys, call them out in the comment section, or you can email me so I call them out for them. We cannot continue certain cycles and hope for different results year in, year out. This government and a different government, we can't still be talking about write me emails. What do you mean? So having access to the people at the top, or not even the people at the top, anyone who could help within that sector, is something that we need to talk about seriously, because if it's a matter of life and death, like for the people in Turkana County, which it is a matter of life and death, we need to act upon it with some certain urgency that it requires, because anyway, that's why we put you on that seat. Now, I don't know if you have anything left on this topic, because this is more of like the section B of episode 8. Would you have anything else in general to comment about the project Redignify, and anything in general you think would be encouraging to others as well going forward in their lives?
So I think mostly it's just to thank the youths that are working towards all these initiatives that they have, especially on, when it comes to water, to agriculture, all these sectors are interconnected to even environment, pollution. So all these youths who are coming and raising their voices against all these vices, I think we should be able to also follow up on whatever you as an individual to take action in your daily lives in impacting into the goodness of other people.
I told you I did not share these questions with her, but as I said, there's a lot of things that we can do in terms of action, and most so even boiling down to individuals. You could take action. I think I have suggested some of those. In the next episode, stay tuned on how you could take action in conservation of water even in your house, So we hope the people that this rant session was aimed at will get to them, and someone, not only in Kenya, but in different spheres also, will take up the challenge of reaching, benefiting, impacting, and following up, that will bring sustainability to the projects that you want to carry on forward. So now there's some interesting twists that comes with this episode. I think this episode has been the most dynamic so far in this season. So Carol had some few questions for me. So I think everyone has had something that they could pick and understand. And take action in their own ways and bring the people responsible indeed for this action to book, that they take the responsibility they actually ought to reserve for that action. So as I was saying, Carol has some interesting twist to this episode. I think she has a few questions for me now that I have never quite been interviewed in this whole podcast. Would you want to go ahead?
What is one of the things that have really surprised you as you're trying to find success in the project?
Y'all should see my face light up right now, but it's been very surprising to see that many people indeed, especially in the water sector, as I said, maybe I am more lenient to the climate change field, but in the water sector, I have learned so much and how different sectors can incorporate into all this. I think one surprising thing is finding out how even universities can be involved in water conservation and water harvesting, as well as ground water exploration in this case. I've been speaking to different people in the water sector and them mentioning even how the security side of water can be incorporated is something that I have found surprising. I just thought water is water until I found out water is, life in that sense, or water is food is security, food is health, health is lifespan is children going to school is education is empowerment. It's a whole chain of things that at the beginning, water is turning out to be the massive enabler to this. I think also in terms of my pursuit and observation to this, I think it's the follow-up or the frustration of just reaching out and constantly reaching out. So initially, when I was doing this research and we were being told to do action plans, I think I was really major on the government side of this because, I was dealing with guys who are from different countries and their governments actually reach out to them and it's easy to access them. So I thought, we can as well just go through the same. Besides, they have budgets allocated to this, so it would be easier to pursue this from the government side. Well, it turns out it's not. So now the surprise I had is you won't find much help with government, especially in my country. So switching all of this and now looking into private sector and different ways of funding this from the private sector is something that I found quite surprising when it comes to my observations and takeaways from this project.
That's interesting because also I participated in a certain walk where we were against plastic pollution last week on Thursday. And one of the speakers told us that there's money that is normally allocated for such projects. So I think we just do not know them because maybe the money is embezzled.
Yeah, I did not know that for sure.
Yeah, he said there's money that is normally allocated for such projects where people maybe you have a project, you don't know how to implement it, then you just face them. And these are government institutions, it was the county government. So I think most of the money is just embezzled, or I don't know. My next question is, of course, with working on Redignify and coming to the success of Redignify, do you have dreams for other projects or what's after this?
Oh my, I think what's after this or what's been running concurrently with this is my projects with, everyone knows this, trees. So it's just tree planting across the world. And if you haven't heard about this, I think I did an introduction in season 1, episode 1 on my works so far and what I've been doing. So I'm basically more or less in the climate change field and specifically ecosystem restoration through reforestation, planting indigenous and fruit trees across the world. More so with children because I believe the term sustainability is the next generation. And that will be the kids. So, our grandparents, they handed to us a world more sustainable, or it was greener than we have now. And so if we are now campaigning up to 2030 to make the planet greener and more sustainable, and then the next generation comes and does what we have done, they'll be back to the same square one we're in right now. So I thought working with the next generation and training them, not only talking and teaching them verbally, but also training them on how to take care of the environment in a way that's sustainable is something that's been major. So I've been teaching kids on how to plant trees and how to take care of those trees. as well as enabling the educators, that's the teachers and their parents, on how these conversations need to be on the table when it comes to climate change and, climate change action. I think we should also be talking about water for sure. I have never thought about being a major in the water field, but this is something that Redignify is taking me, honestly, inevitably to get to that point where we need to talk about the conservation of water, the harvesting of water in households and in schools. So I think I still will be for sure in the tree planting space. I'm also kind of morphing also into the environmental law side. We're trying to make some acts be more recognized as criminal acts in terms of not being treated as petty offenses like misdemeanors where, you pour effluents into a running river and you just get your fine for 20,000 shillings, or just your license is revoked for 2-3 months. So I'm moving into the environmental space where we talk about environmental crimes on a different and more serious level, and that's categorized as ecocide, and having the people who are committing to this and also encouraging or abetting, helping to abet these crimes be charged as a criminal offense that warrants, of course, harsher penalties. Like you'd be charged as if you're committing murder or genocide. So environmental crimes and tree planting will still be my main dream going forward if nothing pops up again.
I think it's necessary that things are taken seriously, because as much as you're actually not killing someone, like strangling them, but it is a delayed form of because at the end of it all, there's someone who will consume this contaminated water. I also think that the catch in your project on tree planting is mentoring the children and these young people in a way that the generation that is coming up is sensitive to the environment that we are living in, so that even the future leaders that we will have are people who are going to bring transformative action in future. So the catch is just starting to mentor these people from a very, very early age.
And that's something interesting I have never thought about, in that statement on ecocidal acts being it's not direct murder, but it being a form of delayed murder. That's so interesting for sure. Smart people on this, people I interact with. I like it. So what else do you have on your mind in terms of a question you'd like me to clarify on?
I do not have any other questions. I'll reach out to you if I have any, but I really thank you for having me in this session. It's been great also hearing from you and how we're doing, and just exchanging ideas and having conversations. Sometimes we could bottle up whatever we're feeling inside, but then you have a conversation with someone else and it's like, this needs to be done. Yeah.
I think it's what we shared in the commonalities of all this season, and more so these 2 episodes where for sure you have seen, maybe I stole some ideas for you or the listeners before I got Kara on board, but you have seen how natural it is that even her, on her side, the frustration that comes with the lack of water and, the ripple effects that leads to the lack of life in the northeastern side of Kenya. And this is also in regard to the climate change field. Just because it's not affecting you, just because you've never experienced drought to that extent, doesn't mean it's not happening. And I'm appealing to the non-believers of all this, that you should and you could see the possibilities of exploring and understanding the effects of climate change in different communities across the world, including, indigenous peoples in different zones, not only in Kenya, that are being affected by climate change. So in regards to water, and just as I wrap up these 2 episodes and try to relate it as much to Redignify, there is a lot of hope, and it's just seated on the ground. And maybe if Dr. Elaine were part of this conversation, you would also see his frustration on how 10 years on after the discovery of this aquifer, nothing much is being done. And to hear that actually there are resources that should be going into this and could be going into this, and we don't hear about them, and people in government prefer to just look for relief food, which is not sustainable to feed the population there. It's not even healthy in terms of nutritional value. So to hear that there are actually funds that are to be taken into projects like this and not see anything on the ground, something that needs to be called out fully with no disregard or any fear, because as I started with, maybe mentioned in a few episodes, this is a human right, a right to life, a right to food, a right to water, to shelter, and the other different ones like a safe environment and self-development is a right. And if it's violated, more so by the people who are supposed to be the custodians of the rights, the government, it's something that needs to be called out for, and with all energy, not only in my country, yours as well. I hope you could stand up and speak for your rights, because who will if you do not do that? And this is a world order that needs to change in terms of the urgency also going into 2030 and the effects of climate change that will be felt after that. We cannot afford to be silent on things that are not right. And we can for sure take action with ourselves and do things that are right. And as still doing things that are right, mentor the next generations to come to take care of these things and follow in the same footsteps. So as usual, it was nice to discuss and speak out all these thoughts and give out these facets when it comes to water and Redignify. I hope you've also understood a bit of context of the people running this project. If not, of course, you could reach out to any one of us after this and see how we will continue the conversation with Redignify. In the next episode, that will be our final episode not for this season, but for the whole podcast, really. It's 2030, so next episode is episode 30. I hope to see you then, because we'll be talking about solutions on ways that you can plug in and conserve water, not only from your individualistic self at home and your household, going into businesses that use water unsustainably, going into governments and organizations as well that use water in ways that need to be talked about. So I hope you've understood lots of things in regards to Redignify now that we've explained more on the agricultural side, and maybe we could have the many more guests who will be dealing with the solar side and green energy side, the security and sustainability, the maintenance of it. It could be a whole discussion with the people included in this project, the engineers and stuff like that. But I think the co-lead was best to have, because you now understand the major parts of this project would be water and then agriculture, and then now the ripple effects that come with agriculture and its benefits. Thank you again, my listeners, for joining in and listening to this podcast episode. I hope you found it interesting and gained courage in your heart to also pursue things that you're deeming not pursuable. It's doable. Go ahead and do it. And if this is the sign you've been waiting for, I've said this before, go ahead and do it. Carol, any last words?
Thank you for having me, Debbie. I wasn't expecting that question, really.
Right, I got her off guard. So, see you on the next flight, guys. Take care of yourselves and all this for Earth.